Hi everyone, it's Mitch, and it is Friday. It's week 4 of college football 2018, and we're going to do our free college football show here. Running a couple minutes late, and that's bound to happen. You know, just is what it is. Normally we do the show on Wednesdays, but actually, as I mentioned on our NFL show yesterday, we're moving this to a podcast form. So, going to be a little bit different. I accidentally hit the play button here on YouTube before I was ready to go, so that's why I'm still getting ready. But we're going to go through every single college football game on the schedule this week from today on. So no reason to shout out, what games you want to see or anything like that, because we're going to go through all of them. So hopefully you guys are ready to go. Of course, we're doing the show outside today. We did it outside, I believe, last week, and at least one of them we did the NFL or the college football outside last week. So we'll be doing it again outside today, as you can see. Anyways, gonna go through all the games. I just want to make an announcement in the Facebook group, let everybody know that we are live on our college football show. But looks like not the sexiest card of games, but certainly plenty of good betting action, and to me that makes it a sexy card of games. And can't see any comments coming through, but we will see if I can see it here on the YouTube page. Anyways, like I said, I'm going to post this over in the Facebook group, let people know we are here. And all right, so barely see the screen, but that's okay. We'll get through it. But of course, like I said, we got college football, and we're going to go through them all, so no reason to yell out the games you want to see, because I'm going to go through them all. And let's get to our first game tonight. Florida Atlantic and Central Florida going at it. The total in this one is climbing. It's up to 75 points. I mean, it looks to set up to be a high-scoring game. Central Florida does have that high-powered offense. Florida Atlantic gave up points in bunches against Oklahoma. They've recovered with 2 wins since then, but 75 to me just seems like a little bit of an ambitious number. So I'm leaning towards the under. I have a premium pick on the side in this one against the spread. Our second game tonight, we have Penn State up against Illinois in a Big Ten matchup. Penn State, I think, is way overrated. This is Trace McSorley, just way overrated, and just like Saquon Barkley was at Penn State, way overrated. Illinois, they've had their share of troubles. Lovie Smith has not had a great run of it there at Illinois, but he is, does the best that he can. So, of course, it hasn't really been good enough. Now, we've seen Illinois be at least a little bit more competitive this season, so I'm leaning in that direction with the bundle of points that we're getting with the Fighting Illini in this game. Those of you that don't know this little trivia fact is my first video I ever did for college football place before it was Sports Chat Place was Illinois. It was the game. It was Illinois, Missouri. It's a fun fact. But anyways, I think the Illini not absolutely horrible in this spot. I think Penn State is a way overrated team. Our late game, we got USC and Washington State. Total in this one is set at 51. I went over this game on the earlier live show today, but I think that this total is definitely doable at 51. The total's dropped from 51.5 to 51. You guys know I generally like to go in the opposite direction of the public, so it makes for a nice spot. But anyways, that concludes tonight's games, and we'll head into Saturday. Of course, this is our college football show. Those of you that haven't taken advantage of it yet, we have a promotion going on with DraftKings right now. If you click the link that's on the site or in the Facebook group, and you sign up for DraftKings, make your first deposit, $5 is the minimum. You get a free Premium Plus 5-day membership, and normally we charge $100 for that. So it's $5, you get 100, and plus your $5 at DraftKings, plus an entry into their into their $3 million NFL Pick'em. So terms and conditions apply. Be sure to check that out over on the site. Click on the link, and it'll take you to a landing page, and it'll answer all of your questions that you have regarding the DraftKings giveaway. But let's get back to college football action. Of course, you guys know I love college football. Let's get to Saturday. Maryland up against Minnesota. You guys know I'm not a big PJ Fleck fan, and I'm not a real big fan of Maryland. I did take it in week 1 against Texas. I had Temple on the money line, though, against Maryland last week, and they certainly came through for me in a big way at plus 475. We're not getting quite that with Minnesota here at plus 2.5, but I do like the Golden Gophers in this matchup. Our next game, we head to Ann Arbor, Michigan. The Wolverines playing against Nebraska. Michigan laying 18 points in this game against an 0-2 Nebraska team. Of course, Nebraska had that one game canceled, due to weather, and then they just decided not to play the game. Michigan, that game against Notre Dame, they probably wish it got canceled. I think Jim Harbaugh's offense is just so vanilla, so bad. I know the Michigan defense is pretty good. The Nebraska defense, not very good, but 18 points with that Michigan offense, I'm not willing to lay that number. I'm going to take the Nebraska Cornhuskers plus the 18 points, which is at least 3 scores, the way that I counted up. Next game, we got Iowa State up against the Akron Zips. Akron 2-0 on the season. Iowa State 0-2. Of course, Iowa State played Oklahoma last week. Fought them pretty tough. Had an injured quarterback, and had he been playing in that Iowa game, the full game, I honestly believe they would have covered there. But he didn't play, so he didn't play the full game. They didn't cover, and I think that Iowa State here laying 19 is a little bit of an aggressive number. You guys know when it's an aggressive number, I always like to go with the dog, and I'll take the dog here. I'll go with the Akron Zips in what is likely to not be a very popular pick. Gonna take, in the next game, we head to an SEC game. We go to Ole Miss, and the Rebels laying 28.5 points against Kent State. Kent State just 1-2 on the season, but 2-1 against the number. Meanwhile, Ole Miss 2-1 on the season, 2-1 against the number. Of course, the one was the shellacking they took at Tuscaloosa against Alabama. And I tell you what, I have very little faith in this Ole Miss team. I'm not going to lay more than 4 touchdowns with Ole Miss against anybody. I'm going to take Kent State in this one and my 28.5 points. Our next game involves another Big Ten team, the Purdue Boilermakers, getting 7 points at home against Boston College. They have to be one of the more disappointing teams. Jeff Brom, when he took over the job last year, the expectations were high. Of course, he had come over from Western Kentucky, where he had done quite well as a head coach. Meanwhile, the Boilers 0-3 this season, 1-2 against the number. All of their games have been at home, and Boston College 3-0 this season, 3-0 against the number. And I really think that this is a sleeper team in the ACC. I think they have a chance to knock off one of the really good teams in the ACC. And I'll tell you, 65 is the total here. I think that total is easy money on the over in the Boston College-Purdue game. The next game, Georgia up against Missouri. Georgia laying 14 points on the road here in Missouri. We haven't seen really Georgia on the road so far this season. We've just seen Georgia. And, they played they were on the road at Columbia, at South Carolina. And they, of course, beat up on the Gamecocks. But they haven't seen an offense like Missouri and Drew Lock yet, which makes this game very, very interesting, as far as the matchup goes. And I just see in this one, I think that Missouri could probably keep it fairly close. I think they have a puncher's chance. I know Georgia's got amazing team speed. I've been fairly critical of Kirby Smart over the years, and I have to say, this is his year to prove it, and I'll tell you, he just has some really, really talented players, and, I can always admit it when I'm wrong, and I might be wrong about Kirby Smart. We'll see what he does with this very, very talented team. I honestly believe that with this talent, most of the coaches in the country, the good ones, the top-tier coaches, could get them to the national championship and probably win the whole thing. I'm not so sure Kirby Smart's able to do that. We'll find out. But I tell you what, I think Mizzou has a chance to cover in this one. I think Georgia wins this thing. I think they probably pull away at the end. But I think 14, I think we're good with Missouri at home. Our next game, we go to Wake Forest, getting 7 points against Notre Dame. We got a quarterback at Notre Dame that completes about 40% of his passes, maybe a little over that. Then at Wake Forest, we have a team that just never seems to get a lot of respect. Really horrible against the number this year, 0-3 against the spread, while Notre Dame 1-2 against the spread. I like the under in Wake Forest, Notre Dame. I just think this game is probably a little bit messy. Our next game, we go to Cincinnati, where the Bearcats take on the Ohio Bobcats, and the Bearcats 3-0 on the season, pretty surprising under Luke Fickell. Went to UCLA, beat the Bruins, knocked their starting quarterback out of the game, and the Bearcats undefeated since then. They beat Miami of Ohio. Meanwhile, Ohio 1-1 so far this season, 0-2 against the spread, and this is a team that a lot of people thought had a chance to be kind of one of those group of 5 contenders for a BCS game. I think Cincinnati might be a little bit overstated here. I have little faith in Luke Fickell. Maybe he's going to prove me wrong too, but I'm going to take my 7.5 points in the Ohio Bobcats. Our next game, we got the Toledo Rockets laying 10 against Nevada, the Wolfpack, and of course, there's 2 different Wolfpacks, right? You got the Wolfpack of NC State, which is 2-word Wolfpack, and then you got the Nevada Wolfpack, which is the 1-word Wolfpack. Kind of like Blue Jays, Toronto Blue Jays, 2 words, and Creighton Blue Jays, 1 word. But anyways, get back to this game, and Toledo 1-1 on the season, coming off of that loss to Miami. They got stomped at home. They just were not competitive in that game. Nevada getting 10 points in this thing, and I just don't see how I could lay 10 points with Toledo with good conscience. I'm going to take my 10 points and Nevada. Our next game, we head to Rutgers, where the Scarlet Knights hosting Buffalo. Buffalo 3-0 on the season, 2-1 against the number. Rutgers coming off of a 55-17 shellacking at Kansas, right? At Kansas. Who gets shellacked at Kansas? Rutgers did. Not good news for the Scarlet Knights. The total in this one is 52. Well, they gave up 55 last week just by themselves. I got to take the over in the Rutgers-Buffalo game. Navy laying 6 at SMU. The Ponies not looking so hot so far this season. Navy 2-1. Of course, the one loss was here in Hawaii against the Warriors. The thing is it wasn't here in Hawaii in Maui. It was over in Honolulu, totally different island, right? It's not like you can drive over the game or anything. You have to take a plane. It's that's a whole nother story. But what we know with Navy is that this is a system team. They run the option offense, and the quarterback is a key player. Navy's quarterback's out this week. I'm going to take SMU. I think that we see Navy probably put the ball on the carpet. Pittsburgh up against North Carolina. North Carolina getting 3.5 against Pittsburgh, and North Carolina getting blown out by East Carolina last time out. Of course, they had a canceled game. Pittsburgh blown out by Penn State in their one loss, 2-1 so far this season, just 1-2 against the number. The total in this one is set at 48. I like the over in this game, and I think that's the way to play it. The next game, Virginia up against Louisville. Louisville 2-1 on the season, 0-3 against the number. Virginia 2-1 on the season. The one loss was at Indiana, but they covered the spread in that one. 3-0 against the number. I think Virginia makes it 4-0 against the number, and that'll be my pick for that game. Going to take a brief just breather here for a second and break from the action. Remind you guys that we have free picks every game, every single day at sportschatplace.com. Our best bets over at sportschatexperts.com, as well as sportschatplace.com Premium and Premium Plus. Of course, we have a really awesome deal with our friends at DraftKings this week. Open a new account at DraftKings. Use our link that's on our site or in our Facebook group. You have to use that link. I'll post it in the comments here as well on YouTube. But use that link. Sign up for DraftKings. Deposit $5. That's the minimum deposit is $5. You get a free $99 5-day Premium Plus membership. So you get $99 worth of stuff for $5, and plus you get your $5 to play at DraftKings, and you also get an entry into their $3 million NFL Pick'em. So terms and conditions apply. You need to check that out. They make me say that. Terms and conditions apply. I know I can't have the asterisks on the screen while I'm talking or whatever. I guess I could, but I'm more about the picks than the asterisks. Anyways, let's get back to rolling. Western Michigan up against Georgia State. Western Michigan, I was seriously disappointed the way they played against Syracuse to open the season. Meanwhile, Georgia State 1-2, 1-0 at home. Western Michigan 0-1 on the road this season. Both these teams 1-2 against the spread. Georgia State getting a touchdown at home. I'll take my touchdown the way I saw the Broncos tackle. I'll tell you that much. Head to Colorado State. No, actually, there's no line on the Colorado State-Illinois State because Illinois State an FCS team. Those lines don't come out until the day of the game. Ball State laying 3 points against Western Kentucky. Ball State 1-2 on the season, but 2-1 against the number. Of course, that game that they covered that they didn't win was at Notre Dame in a kind of regional local game. Last week, they did not cover at Indiana, taking the loss in a one-sided game. But you want to talk about one-sided games. Western Kentucky's been on the wrong side of one-sided games, but they're 2-1 against the number. The thing is, the number here is only 3 points, and I expect Ball State at home to easily cover that one. I like that one a lot. Our next game, Bowling Green up against Miami of Ohio. Bowling Green getting 6.5 points at home. The Falcons 1-2 on the season. Miami of Ohio 0-3. My wife is sitting out here in the chair with Sam the dog. She went to Bowling Green. I don't have much of an opinion on this game, but my wife went to Bowling Green. You guys know what that means. She's sitting here. I got to take Bowling Green, right? Anyways, our next pick, we go to Charlotte and UMass. Are their two worst teams in the country. This could be the worst game of the day. These teams stink. UMass playing their fourth game, 1-3 on the season. Charlotte 2-1 and 2-1 against the number. UMass laying 7.5 points in this one. There is no way I would lay 7.5 points with UMass against anybody. I'm gonna take Charlotte in this one. I know Appalachian State got the best of them, but I'll tell you what, I like Charlotte here. Our next game, my hometown team, Miami Hurricanes, up against Florida International, who is also my hometown team. These teams are like 3 miles apart from each other. They hate each other's guts. They grew up, most of these kids, playing against one another, so they really know each other inside and out. A ton of talent on the field. You have Mark Richt coaching Miami, who's got a chip on his shoulder and something to prove, especially after that opening loss to LSU. Meanwhile, Florida International, something to prove because the kids that are there are super talented, but they were neglected by the big-name schools in Florida like Florida, Florida State, and, of course, Miami. Butch Davis is the coach of Florida International. He is the greatest evaluator of talent in the history of college football. You want to talk about finding sleepers in the recruiting process? No one in the history of college football has done it better than Butch Davis. The spread in this one is 26.5 points. The total in this one is set at 56. I think this one stays under. Our next pick, we go to the game between Florida State and Northern Illinois. Florida State 1-2 on the season. The one win, of course, was against Samford, an FCS school, and Florida State needed to scramble to get that win. Northern Illinois has been pretty terrible. I really expected to see more of them, but this is a team that mucks and mucks and mucks and doesn't seem to put points into the end zone. We saw that against Iowa. It came back to bite them in the second half. You know what? This game is a really, really tough one. The total is set at 45. I like under. I think that this game's terrible. Speaking of terrible, Kansas up against Baylor. Kansas coming off that 55-17 win over Rutgers that we're talking about. Baylor, a team that can't really sit and hold on to the lead. The line on this one's a little bit of a line dropper, 9.5 down to 7.5. I'm taking my 7.5 with the Jayhawks. Next game, Alabama, the Crimson Tide taking on Texas A&M in an SEC feature game. This will be the CBS game, and I'll tell you, as a fan of college football, watching college football on TV, nobody does it better than CBS Sports. So Jason Witten in your Monday night booth, who is the least likable announcer I've ever seen in my entire life. It's where smug meets jock means know-it-all, means know-nothing. That's Jason Witten in a nutshell. He should watch this broadcast on CBS because these guys will show him exactly how you call a game. But Texas A&M getting 26 points against the Crimson Tide. I think Texas A&M holds up in this. We already went over tonight's game, so you're going to have to go back and watch the replay. The person that just posted that comment that they want to see tonight's games first. We went over tonight's games. You're late to the broadcast, so you can go back and watch the replay. Anyways, Virginia Tech up against Old Dominion. Old Dominion 0-3 on the season, 0-3 against the number. Virginia Tech 2-0 so far this season, a canceled game, 2-0 against the spread. So far what we've seen of them, they have looked good. But the problem is that we know that every year Virginia Tech has a stumble game. Sometimes it's the Citadel, sometimes it's East Carolina, sometimes it's, we never know where it's going to be. This one sets up to be that game. I'm telling you, it's coming. I'll take Old Dominion and 27.5 points. The next one, the Clemson Tigers, 15.5 at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is actually a nasty place to play. I know the Yellow Jackets just 1-2 on the season. 0-3 against the number, but Clemson 3-0 on the season and 0-3 against the number. We've yet to see the Tigers actually just explode and peel off the big runs and the big plays and everything that we've expected from this Clemson offense. Maybe maybe that just happens in the second half of the season, looking back at the way that Clemson does it. Anyways, I'm going to take Georgia Tech at home here in 15.5 points until Clemson can show me they can cover a point spread. We got West Virginia up against Kansas State. West Virginia laying 16.5. What we have to remember here is what we've seen from West Virginia so far. And I expect Bill Snyder to find some holes in that West Virginia defense. The deal here, though, is that Will Grier, West Virginia is seriously touting him as a Heisman candidate. So if the score is somewhat out of hand, even late, expect West Virginia to go for the jugular and score the extra touchdown and let Will Grier pad the stats. And I believe that could help them get that 16.5. I don't love this game because, like I said, the general, he always seems to find a way. Ohio State up against Tulane. Urban Meyer back out of whatever he was, semi-suspended. I don't know. Let's just say he condones wife beating. But anyways, laying 37 points at home against Tulane. Tulane 2-1 against the spread, and Ohio State's been pretty much taking it to their opponents this season. Did not cover last week against TCU, and I'll tell you what, I don't think they cover this week either against Tulane. The world is on that Urban Meyer is going to come back with a and put an exclamation point. I think it's going to be a kinder, gentler Urban Meyer as he tries to avoid any kind of controversy whatsoever. Because let's face it, the guy is his reputation not the greatest, and he has not helped himself in that regard. Arizona laying 6.5 at Oregon State. Oregon State absolutely terrible, but 2-1 against the spread. While Arizona 1-2 against the spread, they have not been good either. So I'll tell you, I'm gonna take Arizona here. I'm gonna lay the 6.5 points. Vandy up against South Carolina. The total in this one is set at 54. I like the under in this one at Vandy. Next game, Syracuse-UConn. Syracuse laying 29 at home against UConn. I like the way that Syracuse offense gets clicking. I do not like what I've seen of UConn so far this season. I'm going to take Syracuse and lay more than 4 touchdowns. TCU and Texas, two teams, they don't like each other very much. And I'll tell you, Gary Patterson really doesn't like Texas. I think the Horned Frogs cover in this spot. North Texas up against Liberty. Liberty 1-1 on the season, first year in FBS, while North Texas, of course, coming off that whitewashed Arkansas, and they've been playing really, really well. Laying 12.5 in this one against a somewhat underrated Liberty team. I like North Texas to cover this one. We got Tennessee and Florida in a rivalry game, and Tennessee getting 4 points. Florida 2-1 so far this season. Tennessee 2-1. I think this game is settled late, and as it usually is. I think we're good with the 4 points with Tennessee. I don't know who wins this one. I think somebody wins it by 3. LSU up against Louisiana Tech. LSU laying 20.5 points. I think LSU is just too big and too strong. I think Louisiana Tech is a good team. I think the problem is they don't have the size to compete with LSU. Kentucky up against Mississippi State. I think Nick Fitzgerald, definitely a under-the-radar Heisman guy. Kentucky 3-0, but 1-2 against the number coming into this one. The total set at 56, kind of like the over in this spot. Got Louisiana Lafayette against Coastal Carolina. Lafayette laying 3. Coastal's 2-1 on the season, and just I think that they don't get enough credit for what they're doing. We'll take the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina and our 3 points. We got Arkansas State up against UNLV. UNLV getting 7.5 against Arkansas State. Of course, we saw Arkansas State up against. We saw Arkansas State take on Alabama. I don't know why someone's asking a baseball question on our college football show, but I mean, we have our regular live show where baseball is there, and of course we have our Facebook group if you want to discuss whatever you want to discuss at any time. But anyways, I'm taking UNLV plus the 7.5 here against Arkansas State. This UNLV team is not bad. Oklahoma laying 31 against Army. This is certainly a tough spot here because teams generally don't lay it on the military schools. Oklahoma has all the talent in the world. I don't expect Skylar Murray to go too far in this one because of, like I said, teams generally don't like to lay it on the military schools. I'm going to take Army in the 31 points on that alone. Syracuse laying 5.5 at Marshall. I like the way Syracuse is playing. I think this is the best Gino Babers teams have looked. I know Marshall generally is a team that can come up and bite these teams, but I'm going to take the orange here on the road. Texas San Antonio laying 7 against Texas State. Ooh, this is a bad game, and I'll tell you what, if you got an angle on this one, by all means let us know in the Facebook group because I really think that it's tough for me to lay a touchdown with Texas San Antonio these days, UTSA. Our next game, we're going to go with Oklahoma State up against Texas Tech. Texas Tech getting 14 in this one at Stillwater. You know, the total in this one is set at 76.5. I think we could be close to that at halftime. We were close last week. Texas Tech played Houston. It was 35-28 at halftime. I think this one has a chance to be right in that same neighborhood, so I like the over 76.5. Southern Miss taking on Rice. You know, Rice plays this weird game where they kind of slow the game down and, you know, try and make their offense kind of be their defense. And they're getting 14 points. I think in a short game, in a slowed down game, a Rice team that's kind of played some good teams so far. I like the Owls. I'm all over the Owls like white on Rice. We got Troy up against Louisiana Monroe. I've liked Troy and I followed them for a few years now, and this has definitely been a strong team. They won last week at Nebraska up against Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe returning quarterback. He's the run-pass type of guy. They have the receivers back, running backs back, everything back from last year's team, especially on the offense here. I think Troy has a chance to win this game, but I think it's 1 or 2 points. I'll take 4.5 at home with Louisiana Monroe, kind of an under-the-radar play. Auburn up against Arkansas. Arkansas is a dumpster fire. Meanwhile, Auburn, that after that loss to LSU, I think they're a little bit exposed in that one. But look for them to turn up the gas at home and to run over the Hogs. Got to lay 29.5 in that one. You know that's not a premium pick. You want to talk about a lousy game? Indiana and Michigan State, 2 coaches that play to not lose. There's no more boring football than that. We're going to see a conservative game, and this is one of those games that lasts like 10 minutes because the clock just runs and runs and runs and runs and runs because they're both trying to play keep away. Very, very limited possessions. The total set at 48.5, under. Next game, UTEP up against New Mexico. UTEP 0-3. New Mexico State 0-4. UTEP getting 4.5 points in this one. I mean, I got to take UTEP in the points. I don't know how I could lay points with New Mexico State in good conscience. No line out on Houston and Texas Southern, but we go to Memphis up against South Alabama. Memphis laying 31 points. I love Memphis. I love the way they score points. The problem is that they usually allow about 21 or better. I got to take South Alabama with the points in this one. Oregon up against Stanford. We went over it on this morning show, but I'll tell you again, you can watch this morning show over again. I took Oregon. We got South Florida up against East Carolina. East Carolina started the season losing to an FCS school. Then they went out and absolutely stomped North Carolina by 30. So tough to figure out exactly what they're doing. South Florida came back and got the win against Illinois. Was it something where they kind of came back and then, you know, showed that they can get it done? Or was it, you know, they underperformed, you know, and this is who they are? I'm not really sure. I'll be honest with you on this one. I'm not sure. I'll take the over 68. Usually over is a good way to go in South Florida games. Lots of offense, not a lot of defense, and a lot of possessions. Wisconsin up against Iowa. This is another game that's going to be Big Ten boring. And Iowa +3 in this one against Wisconsin. Wisconsin looked absolutely hideous last week against BYU. Could not stop the run. I expect Iowa to run on them. Iowa, what they've done is worn their opponents down and then take advantage in the second half. I expect Iowa to do that here. I'm going to take the Hawkeyes. Our next game, we got Washington up against Arizona State. Arizona State getting 17.5 against Washington. This line looks so big. It's like the Vegas is begging you to take Arizona State. If they're begging me to take one side, you know where I am. I'm on the other side. I'll take Washington. I'll lay 17.5 at home with Chris Peterson and with Jake Browning, who, I don't know, man. There's a reason why it's not a premium pick. Anyway, San Diego State up against Eastern Michigan, late night game. San Diego State laying 13 in this one. Meanwhile, the total is set at 48.5. I think this one probably stays right around that range of 48.5, but I could see it sliding to the over. So I'll take the over in Eastern Michigan, San Diego State. And our final game, Air Force up against Utah State. Air Force losing last week. I believe it was Buffalo that they played. Well, Utah State had that one loss against Michigan State to start the season, and then they've been solid ever since then. Actually, Air Force's loss was to Florida Atlantic last week. So we'll see how Florida Atlantic holds up tonight against Central. And it's a lean to Utah State. Anyways, we've gone through every single game. I just want to remind everyone that this is just kind of me ripping through the games. I have my best bets are over at sportschatexperts.com as well as sportschatplace.com Premium and Premium Plus. Next week, this show will move to podcast form. I have a co-host, Tony T, and we've been doing a show for many, many years together, and I think you guys will really like it. We have an NFL show, a college football show, a baseball show, a boxing show, a general sports show. We have all sorts of topics that we talk about every single week, and we're going to do it in podcast form as well as I believe there'll be a video form. I'm not really sure. I don't produce the show. I just show up and talk sports. Anyways, I love talking sports with you guys, and I will continue to talk sports all day and all night long in the Facebook group. This is Mitch. Thanks for joining me. I know you guys have a lot of choices when it comes to free pick shows, when it comes to live video, when it comes to regular video, and when it comes to just free picks and websites in general. I'm glad that you guys still keep me in the mix after all these years. Have a great day, everyone. See you guys tomorrow morning for our live show at 10:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.